talk about a specific a project that we did a few years ago, 2017, 2018, at Western Sydney University. That was led by Associate Professor Liam McGee. And just to give you a little bit of background, what we did, we did two short projects that had a very specific practical question. The question was, how is it possible, and whether it is possible at all, for public research institutions to somehow commercialize on the different type of data that they hold, and what would be the technological solutions for ensuring the privacy of this data, and what would be the possible solutions for ensuring its ethical use and sharing. So what I will present now is part of the second project, and it is very practical. I will not bring any theory in it. So a little bit of the context of the issue of data sharing. And as Sunil mentioned, around the time when we were doing this research, there were two important things that happened in the world of data sharing and open data. And one of them was the report of the Australian Productivity Commission in 2017 that encouraged the sharing of public data and also private data. And it was talking about the value of the latent value of data that can be unlocked through sharing and through putting it into different types of operation and analytics between different organizations, and also the need to increase the risk appetite of public institutions and to adopt an approach to data sharing that is less conservative. So this is one thing that happened. And the other event was, of course, the Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2018 that showed that you know, there are stakes in ethical use of data for businesses as well, and it obviously cost Facebook a lot of capital in stock and in penalty fees, but also led to an attempt of Facebook to deal with the impact of this scandal and the unethical use of data that it showed by establishing its own structures for data sharing regulation and ethics of data sharing. So what I will talk about now is 4 case studies that we decided to study as part of the project that were chosen as according to several criteria. So first of all, we wanted to look at case studies where research institutions are involved in the sharing of data and where data is shared between public and private institutions. And we wanted to look at case studies from different parts of the world. But as you can see, all of these are actually, well, actually you can't see because it's not obvious, but all of our case studies are from Western countries. So this is a limitation. The researchers involved in this project were, as I mentioned, Leah McGee, Emma Kearney, and myself. And we chose, sorry, I want to go back actually. So we chose Social Science 1, which is the...
Tsvetelina, are you sharing your screen at the moment?
Yes. Oh no, you're not seeing it.
That's all right.
No, I'm not sharing it. Sorry, let me go back.
That's all right.
That's okay. You are painting a vivid picture.
Exactly. Carry on from where you're at. You're going fine.
But I need to actually show you to show you the rest of the slides. So far it wasn't that important, but now it's important to look at the screen. Okay, so these are the case studies that we looked at. Social Science 1, which is the initiative of Facebook to regulate its data sharing for research purposes. As you know, the Cambridge Analytica scandal was basically a data governance scandal and not so much a breach of privacy, because what had happened is that Facebook shared data with a research institution, and then the data was used in ways that were different from the initial purpose of the sharing. Then Big Data at Heart is a research consortium in the European Union that is organized around the sharing of healthcare data. My Health Record is the Australian case that you are probably very familiar with. And Insight Center for Data Analytics is actually a bit of a different case, so I'm not going to talk in detail about it now, but it is an interesting initiative in Ireland between several universities that is trying to develop a conceptualization of how data should be shared and what is data ethics. And they have developed a Magna Carta for data as part of their work. So what we did as part of our project is that we used different documentation about these 4 case studies, documents that were published by the organizations, by the partnerships, academic publications that were published by people involved in the projects, information that we could find on their website, and company information that we could find about the funding relationships that they have. And what we did is develop a map for each of the partnerships that shows what organizations are involved in the data sharing, what are their roles, and how does this work in principle, and what is the overall model for each of these partnerships. So what we found out is that they're very different. The partnership organization of these data sharing partnerships are very different from a standard understanding of how data is governed within a single organization, because what they have to do is basically navigate different understandings of what the risks and value are that are associated with data sharing, but also sometimes they have to navigate different legal regulations. for example, as in the case of Big Data at Heart, where the institutions are based in different countries in the European Union. So here, can you see this well? Can you see the diagram well? Sorry, I'm not sure if it's well positioned on the screen.
Yeah,
It's
it's
okay.
fine.
Okay, fine. So I will start with social science 1, because I think that's also a bit of a interesting case because of the underlying scandal. So what social science 1 is basically it is a partnership between Facebook and the Harvard-based Institute of Quantitative Science, but it is also registered as an entity that is independent of Facebook. So you can see here some of the relations that are involved in funding the partnership. It is mainly funded by non-profit foundations. A lot of them are involved in charity work and funding of projects related to democracy, to data, but mostly democracy and development. So these are the green squares on the right side are the funding bodies. And then at the Harvard University is linked to Social Science 1 in several roles. So on one hand, it is the main institute that drives the Social Science 1 governance, the Institute for Quantitative Science that is founded by Gary King and Nathaniel Persily. And on the other hand, it also administers the database where the data sets released by Facebook are hosted. The interesting thing about Social Science 1 is that it actually adopts a very conservative model of how to regulate data sharing and what it means to apply ethical principles to data sharing. What it has basically done is adopt two models from the academic world. One is the model of the institutional review boards, which are the ethics committees in US universities. And the other one is to adopt the peer review process from academic publishing. So what researchers, if a researcher wants to get access to the data sets that are released for research by Facebook, what they have to do is first apply to their university institutional review board, get permission, get approved for this project, and then apply to Social Science 1. Afterwards, there is this idea of pre-peer review that is conducted by the Institute of Quantitative Social Science that basically ensures the quality of the publications before they're reviewed. There is different level of access that is afforded to the researchers depending on the sensitivity of the project and the data set that they want to access. And in some cases, if the data set is considered very sensitive, Facebook also can exercise control to the extent of monitoring literally every keystroke of the researcher. It is a very Western-centered concept of how the ethics of data sharing can be governed, and it is also it also shows a tendency of first of all very conservative organizational tendency of adopting already existing structures in academia, and second shows a tendency of offloading the risk and potential dangers of loss of prestige and reputation to the university institutions. This is the process through which researchers have to go in order to access data sets. And the second one that I want to show you is the My Health Record case, which is very different from the Facebook one, because the main actor here is a public institution. And My Health Record is a platform for where the health records of all Australians should be stored. And as you're aware, there were a few problems and hesitation about joining the platform, but these are more or less resolved. So here again, you can see that the main actors are state institutions. On the right-hand side, you can see that My Health Record is funded by the Australian government, the Australian state governments, as well as the Commonwealth government. And the data itself is stored in two secure repositories, Medibank, which stores the medical information of the patients that are registered in My Health Record, and then ERX Crypt Exchange, which is the repository containing medical prescriptions. These are stored in a cloud, on the cloud that is managed and maintained by Accenture, and according to the regulations and legislation of Australia, they have to be stored on within the territory of Australia. So what is interesting about the case of My Health Record is that there are two procedures and two regulations for data sharing, and one is the primary sharing of data, which is for the purposes of clinical use and treatment, which is regulated by the Australian Digital Health Agency. And then you have the secondary access for research, which is access to anonymized data sets that can be used for medical research. And this one is governed by a different institution, the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, to which research institutions can apply. The Australian Institute of Health and Welfare also works with the special My Health Record Data Governance Board, which includes not just government's employees, but also experts from population health, epidemiology, research, patient advocacy, governance and privacy, technology, data science. So this is again quite a conservative, in a way, model of sharing of data, in which the state has great monopoly, and this is also evident. For example, only 2 apps have access to My Health Record APIs in order to connect and use data from My Health Record. And the third one that I want to show you is big data at heart. The big data at heart data it does not actually store healthcare data, but it only stores, it's a platform that only stores metadata, a catalog of metadata that researchers can use to identify which platform, which institution has the data set that they need, and they can contact it and get the data. So that my Big Data at Heart is funded by the European Commission, by European Horizon 2020 program, and the European Pharmaceutical and sorry, I have to see it. So the European Pharmaceutical Industries, European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations. So it is a consortium that combines research institutions, healthcare institutions, and pharmaceuticals. But what is more interesting about it is that as you can see, the organizational structure is not that complex. It doesn't really store the data itself, but it has to deal with a quite complex context, because these institutions are from different European countries, and their regulations for how healthcare data can be shared are differ from country to country. And then you also have the overarching framework of GDPR, which regulates data use and sharing within the European Union. So one of the solutions that they have come up with, which we saw as innovative and interesting approach to data governance, is that they have incorporated, they don't see data governance as a static organizational solution or a technological solution, but they have incorporated it into their research and into the process of developing the consortium. Part of this work is the fact that they have different working groups, and one of their working groups, Work Package 7, is concerned with ethics, legal and data privacy, governance, ethical and legal aspects of data sharing, which is co-led by academics from the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands and representatives of Bayer. So the task of this group is to research and develop guidelines and good practices for data governance and sharing in the partnership as part of the ongoing project. So in this way, the development of a governance framework in this consortium and this partnership is seen as part of the knowledge production of the researchers involved in Big Data at Heart. They have also a different...
Tsvetelina, if we can just move to the wrapping up, please.
Right. Yeah. So these were quite rough and sketchy descriptions of the cases, but as a wrapping up, what we found out and what our analysis showed was that we identified two types of dealing with data governance in data sharing partnerships, and one is the conservative approach, which is represented by My Health Record and Social Science One, where you just adapt existing organizational structures. And the other one is the example of big data at heart, where part of the sharing is actually the process of deliberation. So there is not a set understanding and structure of what data governance is, but there is an understanding that it has to be developed in partnership with different stakeholders, and part of the partnership is actually this development of frameworks and ideas and understanding of what ethical data sharing can be. So this is it. Thanks.